What would you do if a child knocked on your door in the middle of a raging snowstorm, barefoot, trembling and whispering, "They hurt my mama. Please help her"? Would you open that door or turn away into silence? This is the story of Ethan Cole, a broken war veteran who thought his battles had ended, until that knock brought him face to face with the truest test of courage: compassion. In a world frozen by fear and regret, one act of kindness will melt what war and time could not. Tell us in the comments, would you open your door that night? And don't forget to subscribe for more true-hearted stories of faith and redemption. The wind that night in Bozeman, Montana, howled like an animal caged in the mountains. Snow fell endlessly, swallowing fences, trees, and roads until the world turned white and soundless. Beneath the frozen sky, a small cabin stood alone, its windows faintly glowing in the storm's breath. Inside, Ethan Cole, a man in his early 40s, sat hunched near the fire. His shoulders were broad but slumped, his dark hair unkempt, and a thin beard framed a face marked by sleepless years. His gray eyes, once sharp and alert from military life, now carried the quiet weight of guilt. He was a former Marine who had left the service after a fatal mission gone wrong, a single mistake that had cost his best friend's life. Since then, Ethan had chosen solitude, living with nothing but his regrets and a loyal dog named Rex. Rex, a 5-year-old German Shepherd, lay near the hearth. His fur, a blend of sable and ash, shimmered in the firelight. Once trained for rescue missions, he still carried the discipline of service, ears twitching at every creak, eyes alert but gentle. The bond between man and dog was silent but unbreakable, a companionship built on shared loss. Outside, the storm deepened, rattling the wooden shutters like impatient fists. Ethan stood to secure them when another sound cut through the wind. 3 sharp, trembling knocks. Rex lifted his head, a low growl forming in his throat. No one ever came this far after dark. Ethan hesitated, hand resting on the old rifle by the door, then pulled the latch open. Snow and wind burst in, blinding him for a heartbeat. When his vision cleared, he saw a boy, no older than 7, standing barefoot in the snow. His clothes were torn, his small frame shaking violently. Pale cheeks flushed red from cold, and his hair, dark, tangled, matted with frost, clung to his face. Still, his eyes, gray-green and wide with terror, met Ethan's without flinching. "Please, sir," the boy gasped, his voice hoarse. "My mama's hurt. She can't move. My sister's with her. Please, help us." For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. He could hear the boy's teeth chattering, could see how he fought to stay upright. Somewhere deep inside, a memory stirred. Another night, another child crying for help he had been too late to save. Guilt pressed against his chest like a buried landmine. Rex stepped forward, sniffed the boy's shaking hand, and let out a soft whine, the kind he used only when sensing fear that was pure and real. Ethan swallowed hard. "Where are they?" he asked quietly. The boy pointed into the white void of the storm. "Down by the river, in a barn. Please hurry." Ethan reached for his coat and flashlight, the leather creaking as he moved. The boy's eyes followed him, desperate and trusting. Outside, the wind screamed, erasing all traces of the road. Ethan opened the door wide and looked into the blizzard. Its darkness seemed endless, its voice full of ghosts. "Let's go," he said at last. The boy took his hand, small and trembling. Rex barked once and leapt into the snow ahead, leading the way into the storm. Behind them, the fire in the cabin flickered, then went out. The snowstorm thickened as Ethan followed the boy through the dark. The wind screamed across the valley, stinging his face with shards of ice. Each step crunched beneath their boots, the beam of his flashlight barely slicing through the storm. Rex trotted ahead, nose low, tracking the faint human scent buried beneath the cold. The boy, Noah, stumbled often, his thin legs trembling, but he refused to stop. Ethan noticed how the child's hands shook, not just from cold, but from fear that seemed older than his years. When Noah's breath hitched, Ethan slowed down and placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "We'll get there," he said, his voice steady as a promise. The boy only nodded, eyes glistening with tears that froze before they could fall. Soon, a faint shadow appeared through the snow, a collapsed barn leaning against the wind. Its roof sagged, the walls scarred by time and neglect. Ethan's gut tightened. He could smell rotten, damp wood even before pushing the door open. Inside, the air was thick with cold and silence, broken only by the sound of someone breathing, shallow, pained, and fragile. A small lantern flickered on the ground beside a woman's body. She was lying on torn blankets, her face half hidden by tangled chestnut hair matted with blood. Her lips were split, and one eye was swollen shut. Yet beneath the bruises, she had a quiet dignity, like someone who had learned to endure pain without asking for pity. Beside her, a girl about 10, with long blonde hair and pale skin, knelt protectively, clutching her mother's hand. Her name, as Ethan would soon learn, was Lucy Carter. When the door creaked, she turned sharply, eyes wide with terror, pulling a small piece of wood as if it were a weapon. "It's okay," Ethan said softly. "Your brother brought me here. You're safe now." Lucy hesitated, then looked at Noah, who gave a tiny nod. Slowly, she lowered the wood. Ethan knelt beside the woman, Anna Carter. Her skin was ice cold, but her pulse faintly fluttered beneath his fingers. "We have to move her," he murmured. "No," Anna whispered weakly. "He'll come back. He'll kill us." Ethan's gaze hardened. "Not tonight." He lifted her carefully, wrapping her in his coat, feeling how weightless she was. The children followed, Lucy holding the lantern close, Noah clutching Rex's fur for warmth. As they stepped back into the snow, Ethan glanced at the dark woods behind them. A sound, faint but real, echoed in the wind. A door slamming, or footsteps, he couldn't be sure. He only tightened his grip around Anna's frail form. "Keep walking," he said. "Don't look back." And into the white storm, the four of them disappeared, their tracks already vanishing beneath the falling snow. The storm raged long into the night as Ethan pushed through the snow, carrying Anna Carter in his arms. Her body was light, frighteningly so, her head resting against his chest as if she might vanish if he let go. Noah stumbled beside him, clutching Rex's fur, while Lucy followed close, shielding the small lantern that flickered weakly in the wind. When they finally reached the cabin, the door groaned open to the dim glow of dying embers. Ethan laid Anna on the couch near the fire and threw wood into the hearth until flames bloomed again, painting the walls gold and red. He poured hot water into a bowl, tore a clean shirt into strips, and began tending her wounds. His hands, calloused from years of service, moved with an unexpected gentleness. Lucy and Noah watched in silence, their faces pale and hollow from cold. Ethan glanced at them. "Sit close to the fire," he said. They obeyed, clinging to each other, shivering until Rex lay beside them, his warmth easing their fear. Anna stirred, groaning softly. Her lashes fluttered open, revealing eyes clouded with confusion and pain. When she saw Ethan leaning over her, she recoiled weakly, whispering, "Please, don't hurt me." Ethan's voice came low, calm. "You're safe. Your children brought me to you." For a moment, her gaze darted around the cabin, the tools on the walls, the rifle by the door, the giant man with the soldier's stillness. She didn't trust safety. It had betrayed her too many times. But when Rex padded over and rested his head on her arm, she froze, then exhaled, as if the dog's touch reminded her what kindness felt like. Ethan turned away, hiding the ache behind his eyes. He wasn't used to being looked at with fear. Once, people had followed his orders. Now, even a wounded woman shrank from his shadow. He fed the fire again, its crackle filling the silence. Lucy broke it first. "You were a soldier, weren't you?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "A long time ago." "Did you save people then too?" she asked softly. His jaw tightened. "No," he said, barely audible. "Not enough." Outside, the wind began to ease, the storm losing its voice. Anna drifted into uneasy sleep, her breathing shallow but steady. Noah curled against Rex, his small hand tangled in the dog's fur. Ethan sat by the fire, staring into the flames. They hissed and shifted, like ghosts whispering in the smoke. Somewhere deep inside, he felt the fragile pulse of something he had forgotten, the faint warmth of belonging. And as the snow pressed against the window panes, Ethan realized that peace had a sound. The sound of 3 quiet breaths rising in the dark. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the world blanketed in a silence too clean to trust. Smoke rose from Ethan's chimney, curling through the pale dawn. Inside, the cabin smelled of broth and pine wood. Anna Carter sat upright for the first time, her hair loosely tied, her face bruised but soft in the firelight. She thanked Ethan in a voice still fragile, though her eyes carried the wariness of a creature long hunted. Lucy swept the floor clumsily, while Noah fed Rex bits of leftover bread. Laughter, faint and uncertain, echoed once. The sound startled even Ethan. He hadn't heard that kind of peace in years. But it didn't last long. Later, when Ethan rode into town for supplies, the quiet he'd found was replaced by something sharper. Eyes followed him from every porch, every window. At the general store, 2 men stopped talking the moment he entered. A woman pretending to arrange fabric whispered to another behind her hand. "Cole's taken in that Carter woman," one voice said. "Heard her husband's looking for her?" Another added. "Drunk and dangerous." "And she's staying with him? Alone?" "My lord." Ethan paid for the flour and bandages without a word, though his jaw flexed tight enough to crack. He was used to whispers. Once they'd called him the soldier who broke. Now something worse. As he stepped outside, the wind carried a faint laugh from behind him, brittle as glass. On the ride back, his mind circled the same thought. It doesn't matter. But the lie felt heavier than truth. He had spent years hiding from judgment, yet the echo of it still found him, even in mercy. Back at the cabin, Anna noticed his silence. "They've seen me, haven't they?" she asked quietly, without turning from the window. Ethan didn't answer at first. He set the supplies down, eyes on the fire. "Small towns talk. They always have." She nodded slowly, fingers twisting the edge of her blanket. "Then I've ruined your peace." Ethan met her gaze. Peace doesn't break that easily. But the truth lingered unspoken. It already had. Outside, Rex barked once, deep and wary. Far off in the distance, faint against the mountains, a single echo answered. A voice carried on the wind, too distant to name, but close enough for Ethan to know it belonged to Derek Carter. And as the sky dimmed with evening, the mountain air grew heavy again. Not with snow this time, but with the promise of a reckoning. Night fell heavy over the Montana hills, darker than it had been since the storm. The wind had gone quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that comes before violence. Inside the cabin, Ethan Cole sat by the fire sharpening his old hunting knife, the rhythmic scrape filling the room like a heartbeat. Anna Carter sat nearby, sewing the torn sleeve of Noah's coat. Her hands trembled not from cold, but from thoughts she couldn't silence. All day she had watched Ethan, how he moved with measured calm, how his eyes scanned the tree line each time Rex barked at nothing. She knew he sensed it too. Danger circling closer, invisible but certain. She broke the silence. "He'll come for us, Ethan. Derek always finds a way." Ethan paused, knife hovering midair. "If he does," he said quietly, "he'll find someone waiting." His tone carried no anger, only the weary steadiness of a man who'd spent his life facing what others ran from. Outside, Rex began to growl, low and deep. The fur along his spine bristled as he stared toward the dark woods. Ethan rose, walking to the window. Far beyond the clearing, faint lights flickered, lanterns moving in uneven rhythm. His pulse tightened. He turned to Anna. "Get the kids in the back room, lock the door, and don't open it unless you hear my voice." Anna's lips parted to protest, but the look in his eyes stopped her. She gathered Lucy and Noah, ushering them toward the small room where quilts hung over the window. Lucy clutched Rex's wooden toy horse to her chest. Noah whispered, "Is he coming?" Anna forced a smile. "Your friend will keep us safe." Ethan opened the gun cabinet, checking the rifle's chamber. He had hoped never to lift another weapon again, but tonight, his silence carried the weight of purpose. The memories of war flashed, the sound of boots, of fire, of men shouting. He closed his eyes briefly, grounding himself in the present. A cabin, 2 children, 1 woman who'd already suffered enough. Outside, the crunch of footsteps on snow broke the stillness. Then a voice, slurred and venomous, echoed through the night. "Cole, you think you can take what's mine?" Ethan stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand, breath forming clouds in the cold air. The night around him held its breath, and from the dark the first shadow moved, the beginning of the storm that had nothing to do with weather. The snow outside glowed faintly under the moonlight, turning the cabin yard into a field of ghosts. Ethan Cole stood on the porch, rifle steady in his hands, as 3 shadows emerged from the tree line. Derek Carter, staggering with drink and fury, led them, his coat half open, eyes wild and red. The 2 men behind him were little more than shapes, local drifters pulled by liquor and promise of trouble. "Cole," Derek's voice cracked the silence. "You think you can take her from me? My wife? My kids?" Ethan didn't move. "They're not yours to hurt anymore." Rex growled low from behind the door, the sound deep enough to vibrate through the planks. Derek laughed, the kind of laugh that came from pain disguised as pride. "Look at you, the fallen hero. You hide behind women and dogs now?" Ethan's grip on the rifle tightened, but he didn't raise it. His pulse beat heavy in his ears. He'd heard those words before: coward, broken, unfit. Spat at him by men who never understood what it meant to carry guilt. "Go home, Derek," he said, voice level. "There's nothing for you here but shame." Derek snarled, stepping closer. "You think you're better than me?" He drew a knife, its edge catching the moonlight. The drunks behind him hesitated, the courage in their faces already cracking. Inside, Anna pressed her palms to the wall, listening. Her heart hammered, every breath a prayer. Lucy held Noah close, whispering, "He'll protect us, you'll see." But her voice shook. Outside, Derek lunged. The knife flashed. But Ethan was faster. He deflected the strike, twisting Derek's wrist until the blade clattered to the ground. They grappled in the snow, fists and boots breaking the silence. The drunks scattered, leaving their leader to his own rage. Ethan pinned Derek to the ground, his fist poised high. The man beneath him spat blood, sneering. "Do it, soldier. That's all you're good for." Killing. Ethan froze. The night seemed to hold its breath. His eyes flicked toward the cabin window, where a faint glow framed the silhouettes of two small children watching, their hope fragile as candlelight. He exhaled slowly, lowering his hand. "No, Derek, not this time." He grabbed the rifle, pressed its cold barrel against Derek's chest, not to fire but to make a vow. "You'll answer for what you've done, but not by my hands." From inside, the door creaked open slightly, and Anna's tearful whisper broke the night. "Ethan?" The soldier turned his head toward the sound, the name echoing through the quiet. And just then, the wind rose again, carrying with it the cry of something neither victory nor peace, but the fragile space between. The first light of morning crept slowly across the frozen fields, touching the snow with shades of gold. The storm had passed, leaving behind a silence so deep it seemed sacred. Inside the cabin, Ethan Cole sat by the dying fire, his body weary, his knuckles raw. The rifle leaned against the wall, unused. Outside, footprints marked the ground where Derek Carter had been taken by the sheriff hours earlier, his drunken rage now just another ghost swallowed by the dawn. Anna Carter stirred from where she sat near the hearth. Her face was pale but peaceful, eyes red from tears she hadn't noticed falling. The children still slept, Lucy's head resting on her brother's shoulder, Rex curled protectively at their feet. For the first time in years, their breaths rose evenly, without fear. Ethan's gaze lingered on them, the fragile picture of safety he had fought for. But in his heart, he knew peace had its own cost. He had seen enough of war to know that even mercy left scars. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the kettle, pouring coffee that had long gone cold. Anna's voice broke the quiet. "You could have killed him. No one would have blamed you." Ethan shook his head slowly. "That's what he wanted, to make me into him." She studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "You're not him, Ethan." He met her eyes then, soft brown against weary blue, and for a fleeting second, the room felt warmer. Outside, the sheriff's wagon tracks were already filling with snow. Life would move on, but not easily. The town would talk as it always did. Some would call Ethan a hero, others a fool for saving a man who deserved none. But for Anna, none of that mattered. She rose, walking toward him with slow steps, stopping just close enough to whisper, "You didn't just save us. You saved yourself." Ethan looked away, unable to bear the truth in her words. His whole life had been running from redemption, and now, somehow, it had found him. Rex lifted his head suddenly, ears twitching at the sound of birdsong outside. The first in weeks. The fire popped softly, scattering a few sparks into the light. Ethan stood, opening the door. Cold air rushed in, sharp and clean. Snow still blanketed the valley, but the sky above was clear, a vast blue that promised beginnings. Behind him, Anna whispered, "What happens now?" Ethan didn't turn. "We live," he said simply. And for the first time, the word didn't sound like survival. It sounded like hope. Spring arrived quietly, not with thunder, but with the soft drip of melting snow. The valley breathed again, Rivers waking, fields turning green. In the small cabin on the hill, laughter replaced silence, and a man once haunted by war learned the grace of stillness. Ethan Cole no longer counted his days by regret, but by warmth. A child's smile, a shared meal, a loyal dog resting at his feet. The past remained, but its weight had softened. And when he looked toward the horizon, where snow gave way to earth, he understood. Some battles are won not by force, but by love's quiet persistence.